Teamwork. One of the biggest things about working in a team is how everybody feels about each other. So I don't like you. I think you're great. Actually, it turns out I didn't need to tell you how I felt about you for you to decide whether or not I like you or not. So, one of the best things about teamwork is the ability to understand how those interactions work. Let's take a couple of minutes. I want to go through the best exercise that I've ever seen in how to teach that to a group. The ideal setting for this exercise is having somewhere between, let's say, 10 and 30 people. Now, really the perfect size is somewhere in that 15, maybe 20 range. So if you have over 20, I suggest you break this into two groups. But make sure that the second group can observe the first group while the exercise is going on. You really want these compartmentalized because there's an element of impact that's really critical to this whole thing. So you need a group, you need a dedicated area that you can do this. So in my mind, I'm imagining that you're either doing an offsite training session or you've got some dedicated time in the office, in a conference room, in an area to do this where you can be undisturbed. The only other thing you need is a deck of cards. You can see I have a couple behind me. So you've got your students, you've got your setup, you're probably a couple of days in or partially in to your training session. So this isn't something you want to start with, but this is an opportunity. Take a break and let's really get social experiment and teach a lesson about teamwork. Now it's time for a little prep. We're going to take our deck of cards I talked about earlier, and you're going to need to break it into three groups. Let me tell you what you're looking for. So in the top group, this is all the high cards, right? So you can quickly sort this to be jack up days. The middle is 10 to sixes. The bottom section is going to be 2 through 5. All right, but here's what you're really looking for. Let's say we're going to have a group of 15 people because it makes this fairly straightforward. You modify this to your group. All right, so 1/3 of the cards, I want you to get, really make this easy on yourself. This will be the most impactful. Kings and queens, 5 of them. Group number two, I just want you to do sevens and eights. Again, 5 cards. Okay? Last group, you're going to do just twos and threes, 5 cards. If at all possible, you try not to have everything be all of one suit, but this is only because people may start looking for patterns that really aren't there. All right, now we're going to take those 15 cards. And remember, this is something that you needed to do ahead of time. You've got them all set up and ready to go. You're going to shuffle those 15 cards up, but only you see them yet. Okay, rules. That's how these things always work, right? The workshops. So, step number one, you're going to instruct the group that we're all going to stand up and we need to move to an open area. You don't need a lot of space for this, but people need to be able to mill around. You're going to take that stack of 15 cards you have, you're going to shuffle them all up, and you're going to walk around the group and you're going to hand them out. But I need you to know, well, I need you to tell them, they need to know the rules ahead of time. Rule number one, I'm going to hand you a card. You're going to keep that card face down. You're not allowed to look at what your card is. Now, rule number two, once everybody has a card, we're all going to mill around the room and talk. And the rules of the game are you're going to put that card up to your forehead. So it's going to be up here, facing away from you, no matter what the card is. Now, as you're walking around the room talking to people, you are going to treat them the way that that card is. Are they a king or a queen or an ace? Treat them like that. Are they a two? Treat them like that. The idea is that you're trying to help the people in the group know what card they have without them ever having seen it. Now, you're going to let them mill around a couple of side things, ask people to really talk about anything. Don't talk about the workshop, talk about your hobbies, talk about your interests. Maybe give them a couple of ideas just to get people started. Also ask that you don't speak to anyone for more than 15 to 30 seconds. Make sure that you have an opportunity to interact with many different people, get many different perspectives. Now, after everybody has walked around the room and spoken to everybody, you're going to stop and everyone's going to put the card down. Again, don't look at the card that you have. And this is the most important part. Now, without looking at the card that you have, try to sort yourself, and you, the instructor, say, I want the kings and the queens and the aces and all the way over here, and I want the twos and threes over here. Do your best to sort yourself in order from two to ace. Now, everyone has had a moment to line up the way that they believe, ask them to turn the card over, and finally look at what they're holding. And this is where this whole exercise becomes so critical. In my experience, everyone's lined up almost perfectly in order. So you need to point that out. Hey, great job, everybody. You were able to do this. Now, why did we do this? Because for you to know what everyone else thinks of you, you don't need them to tell you. You're able to tell based on their body language, based on their tone of voice, based on how they treat you, what they talk about, how long maybe they want to talk to you. This is the thing. Humans have great perception. They have the capacity to know how others think of them. Now, this is really critical in how you're going to interact with the rest of your team. How are you going to treat people because they know what you think? Platitudes and pretending and trying to put on a show. Well, only the best poker players can really do it. And even then, I may not know what card you have, but I know that you don't like me. So how can we work together truly? How can you be effective as a leader if people know that you don't like them? The reality is, don't get better at faking. Authenticity is critical. Who you are, how you really think of people. So you need to think about, how can I flip that script? How can I look at a situation that said, think, I'm so frustrated that you don't understand me, and instead think, I'm frustrated that I can't express myself well enough to help you understand. That simple change, that reality of taking ownership of the problem and not putting it back on that person, allows you to be authentic about your concern, about your desire to help, and for them to actually see it. That's what this exercise is all about. Just a deck of cards, just a group of people. Done correctly, very impactful, and it can change the way people look at leading and interacting for a career. Thank you.